It's Hockey Heaven at 11. Campbell versus Gallo. Simon Tsalikis in for Mitch Gallo. Mr. Dave Pagnotta from the fourth period. How you doing, Dave?
Not bad, boys. Not bad. Better than the folks in Raleigh right now.
Oh yeah, we could start there. I don't see how Carolina can put up even a fight right now in Game 4.
Yeah, I mean, me neither. The way that they've played, not overly indicative of a team in a conference final. I mean, a couple of years ago when they got swept, and Roddy Brindamore said, "Well, we didn't get swept, but we did, whatever." Those were tight games. Those were close games. Those were tight games. I understood what he was trying to say. There's nothing here. Like this time around, totally different ball game. Florida has been dominating from start to finish, and minus a little bit of, I guess, the first half of the game, or even the first two periods of Game 3 were relatively tight, and then Florida just unleashed. And whether it's Anderson and net, Kochetkov, it doesn't really matter. Brindamore said it after Game 3 as well. Their top guys aren't their top guys, and until those guys wake up or start contributing offensively significantly, it's lights out. I mean, maybe everything goes right for Carolina tonight, and they pull something off here. But I don't see them winning 4 straight. I don't see them winning 4 straight against Florida, and I don't see Florida losing 4 straight to anybody. So, I mean, from Carolina's perspective, good season, tough way to end, and it's either ending tonight or Wednesday for me at the latest.
Dave, I guess, look, are we maybe not giving the Florida Panthers enough credit? Like, I know that in Toronto, the Leafs took a beating for their Game 5 and Game 7 performance. But at the end of the day here, I was on the weekend, and this Florida Panthers team, not there just yet, but we're talking about Yzerman Red Wings here. We're talking about Forsberg and Sakic Avalanche. That's where, you start getting to 3 Stanley Cups in a row. Yeah. Probably going to be the favorite to go back-to-back if they get there, right? Even if it's Edmonton or Dallas, Vegas will still probably have them as the favorites. But maybe we're giving enough credit to how good this Florida Panther squad is.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think overall. I don't think we are. For me, and it's funny too, because I was looking at this team and how they've played, and obviously I covered the Leaf series, so I was looking at, I had the opportunity to see them, 4 times. And, this team, to me, the way that they play, the depth that they have, the continued growth of guys like Lundell and Luosterainen. Like this team, I got to say, probably better than the team that won the Cup last year, which is scary. You've got the guys that won, the bulk of this team intact. You add different pieces. Again, the growth of the young kids. And then you've added Brad Marchand to the mix, who has given them 3 lines that can dominate the possession battle, dominate offensively, dominate physically, and get under the skin. And then you add Seth Jones to the back end, and you modify his game throughout the rest of the regular season going into the playoffs. This team, the way that they perform, the depth that they have, it's just remarkable. I think, I agree with you. I think regardless of who they end up playing, the Edmonton Oilers or the Dallas Stars, and the Stanley Cup will start out west, regardless of the winner. I've got Florida as the favorite as well, and the way that they're playing and they continue at this pace, you're talking about, repeat and maybe more the way that this team plays, and the longer that Sergei Bobrovsky in net can also perform at this level. Like, he was decent in the first round, and then started to kind of emerge and wake up in the early part around game 4, especially of the second round. When you've got all of those elements together, that D word is going to creep up on everybody quick.
Just get back to Carolina here, Dave, for a second. Look, it's a good team. They make the playoffs every year. They usually get out of the first round. They've gone to a couple of conference final appearances. It is ridiculous that the number might go to 0-15 or 0-16. That's nuts. But what are they doing this offseason? We spend a lot of time talking about what the team in this city is going to do and Toronto's going to do and everywhere else. But can the Carolina Hurricanes, are they enticing perhaps to a Mitch Marner, to a Matt Duchene? I doubt Sam Bennett, but let's just throw his name in the mix as well. Do the Carolina Hurricanes this offseason kind of go outside of their box and maybe not get the world's greatest 200-foot player, but somebody that has a little bit of playoff jam?
Look, these guys have almost $30 million in cap space.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, and at least up front, there's no major free agent that they've got. Not even a restricted RFA. On the back end, you got Burns and you got Orlov. You got to decide what you want to do there on both of those guys. Burns, I think he's 40 now, so you're going to have some questions there. But that's a lot of money. That's $30 million that they've got. It might be just a smidge under it. They're going to be active. And they took big swings last year. They brought in Gensel. They took the big swing this year with Rantanen. Didn't work. They flipped them. I like the return. I like what they got. But with $30 million in cap space, there's no doubt in my mind that they are going after Mitch Marner if he hits the open market. Excuse me. And look, with respect to Mitch, he's not going to be. They're not going to be the only one. Certainly he's going to have the pick of the litter. But with $30 million in cap space, depending how aggressive they want to be, and that owner wants to win. That owner is itching to win. So to green light a lot of these moves, like he's been in the thick of those discussions. He wants to do what he can to win. And now it's a matter of finding those pieces that are going to put you over the top. Again, no doubt in my mind they're going to pursue Mitch Marner if he's there July 1. But also, they're going to add additional pieces on top of it. And that's where those intangible kind of playoff performers come into play for a team like this. With the bulk of their roster intact going into next season, minus a little bit of shape-shifting on defense that they're going to have to do, reshaping. They have the potential of adding some pieces here to get them out of this little rut, this conference final rut that they're in. And they're going to be an interesting player this summer.
Chatting with Dave Pagnotta, the fourth period. Hockey Heaven at 11. Campbell versus Gallo. Simon Tsalikis in for Mitch Gallo. I'm Sean Campbell. All right, coming in, you heard a couple highlights. Connor McDavid doing Connor McDavid things. He's back to leading the NHL playoffs in scoring. But before we get to McDavid, someone Simon has been talking a whole lot about. How about Evan Bouchard again in the playoffs?
Yeah. Criticized decently this season. For his performance and for his overall output, and a lot of people have been critical, and I'm one of them, of the team's depth and secondary scoring that just wasn't there consistently all season long. And I question whether they were going to be able to flip that switch and get going. I didn't think they would to this extent, and I didn't think you would see Bouchard playing at this level. I know, contract year, all that stuff that's going to come into play. Normally, you see those types of players having fantastic seasons, but it just wasn't consistent for the most part this year. But man, Evan Bouchard, another multi-goal game, comes in, plays well, provides offense. When his shot is on, it's lethal, and it's a pain for the Dallas Stars, certainly, so far in the first three games of this series. I look at this and I go, okay, it's 2-1. Probably give Edmonton 7 of the 9 periods in their favor. You could talk about the bounces. You could talk about the puck going over the glass, didn't get called, and this, that, and the other. Edmonton's taken advantage of certain opportunities. And guys like Bouchard have been mega contributors as to why they're where they're at right now, 2 wins away from getting to another Stanley Cup final. I don't want to say pay the man just yet, but I still think to have that caliber guy performing the way he has as a threat on the point, power play or 5-on-5, it spreads things out for Edmonton a little bit more on top of the guys up front outside of 29 and 97 that are getting the job done.
And the Dallas Stars, I guess, look, Mikko Rantanen had himself quite the first and second round. Just, Dave, is there something I'm missing here? Is there perhaps an injury of some type? Because he's pretty much been a no-show in the first 3 games of this series.
Yeah, and it took him a little while to get going in the first round as well, before he woke up game 5, 6, and on, and took off from that point. I think it's a combination of being counted on quite a bit. But Edmonton understands that. The combo I'm talking about is, I mentioned the depth of Edmonton and the Oilers' offensive guys, their secondary scorers getting going. That has not been the case for the Dallas Stars in this series. Robertson got credited with that one, but yesterday afternoon, excuse me. But he hasn't been consistent. Wyatt Johnson, other than being on the ice, it seems almost every time Edmonton scores, hasn't really contributed. You need more out of Duchesne in this series, Jamie Benn and others, because their secondary guys aren't rolling. Edmonton is going to apply more pressure on Dallas's top line, and to a certain extent contain Rantanen's capabilities. Now, I still think he's due to go off at some point. But for Dallas, you're going to need to have those other guys in the mix because then it changes the way that Edmonton's going to have to approach the way that they're going to defend this team. Again, they scored in bunches in game 1. In that third period, they took advantage of it. They basically stole that game. But the last 2 games, very indicative of Dallas's poor overall output. And until their secondary guys get going, and Edmonton has to shift the way that they approach their plan of attack defensively, it's just that much more pressure getting applied to Rantanen and his unit. So it's a bit of a catch-22 scenario here for me.
How has Miro Heiskanen looked to you overall since coming back from injury?
Look, he's been okay. I didn't expect him to come back and be a dominant type of threat right out of the gate. The guy missed a lot of hockey. And to come back in pressure cooker moments and more physical moments like the conference final, it's going to take him a couple of weeks to get his game going. So I didn't anticipate him coming in and suddenly being this massive threat or this big savior or the guy that's going to push him over the top exclusively because of, again, how much hockey he missed. It was going to take some time. I think he's been decent. I think he's been solid. But outside of that, being the dominant type of player that he can be, I wouldn't have anticipated him getting to that level for a couple of weeks. And in this scenario, if they get out of this round, then you'll start to see, I think, a more enhanced version of him in the Stanley Cup final. But and maybe that alters and modifies the way that at least I view it if it does end up being Dallas and Florida. But again, missed a lot of hockey, going to take a lot of time to get back in terms of being the superstar type defenseman that he is.
And can you get behind the Stuart Skinner redemption tour here? It's fun.
It is fun. It's collective.
Yeah.
Because Edmonton's defensive game has been, I don't know where the hell this was all season. They've been a lot better, and it's factored in. Although I will say that, if it wasn't for Stuart Skinner in that second period yesterday, Dallas might even be we may be talking about something totally different. That could have altered the way this series went, let alone the game, and it may be Dallas up 2-1 because Edmonton would have had to been chasing if the Stars popped in a few goals there. So he was he was fantastic yesterday. He was fantastic, especially in that second period, like I said. But Edmonton's defense has also been finally bailing him out and helping him out, I should say. And that's what you need when you don't have that superstar goaltender. You need to be able to be doing it by committee to a certain extent. That being said, he keeps this going. It's going to be a big problem for the Dallas Stars. Now, based on how he's played, it might end up being a 5-0 Dallas Stars game in game 2, and he's going to give up a few shaky ones because it's one end of the spectrum or the other for him, it appears. But especially the last 2 games, a huge reason as to why the Oilers are where they are. And like I said, if it wasn't for his performance yesterday in that second period, we may be talking totally different right now.
Dave, one more before I let you go. Rupe Hintz showed up to the building, did not play in game number 3. Do we know anything whether or not he's ready to go for game 4?
Not yet. I mean, I think it was a good sign that he, made the trip, even though, he was seen with the boot on and off afterwards. And he gave it a shot. So maybe it's a couple more days to feel good, whatever it is, whether it's a bone chip, something clearly is there. But for him to not get going in game 3, I don't think this is a scenario where Dallas wanted to forfeit a game, in quotations, forfeit a game by adding to the dramatics of him not playing, even though he could have. I think it's a more serious injury, but one that, again, good sign that he was out there for warm up, didn't get going. I would anticipate him being in the next one, but I don't have that definitive information. That's just my assumption based on how the last little bit has gone, and a couple days more rest might do the trick.